As well as the UK contemplates what life might be like outside the EU, some supporters of Brexit have pointed to another island nation that has been very successful economically while keeping its neighbours at arm's length. Our Asia business correspondent Karishma Vaswani reports from Singapore.
From third world to first. In just 50 years since independence, Singapore has turned into one of the world's richest cities. Not too long ago, this was a sleepy fishing village. On the banks where once Indian and Chinese merchants haggled over goods, now the icons of global finance tower over the horizon. Trade has always been at the pulse of this place.
Singapore's leaders knew that this tiny island couldn't survive by itself, so it's used its neighbours to chart its own course of success.
Just look at where Singapore is in the region. A tiny dot in a sea of bigger, more powerful countries. That's why in 1967 it was one of the founders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, also known as ASEAN, which today is an economic bloc of 10 member states. Singapore has also signed 21 free trade agreements with everyone from America to China. Looking beyond its shores is what's helped Singapore thrive, according to the boss of the country's largest bank.
Singapore benefits enormously from the trade, capital and labor movements within ASEAN. And frankly, I don't think Singapore would be able to survive, leave alone thrive, without access to these kinds of flows.
With a small population, this country has looked elsewhere to fill its workforce. Today, 4 out of 10 people here are foreigners. This has brought with it its own problems, and the government is trying to address them. But Singapore can pick and choose who it wants to let in.
If you look at Singapore's situation and the situation of countries in ASEAN, however, they have a single market, not nearly as deep as Europe's, but they have a free trade agreement which covers almost all the trade within ASEAN's borders. But there's no free movement of labour. There are efforts to introduce the free movement of labour in some skilled professions, but they haven't gone very far, and there's no talk at all of complete freedom of movement of labour. So in a sense, Singapore has now what Britain wants.
So, as you've seen, Singapore has benefited from being part of the ASEAN grouping. It's been able to sell its products to its neighbours and make use of the workforce in the region. Although ASEAN certainly has its limitations, at its core there is a belief that member states shouldn't get involved in each other's business. And currently, that's an option the UK doesn't have. Karishma Vaswani, BBC News, Singapore.